For half a century, Linda Sue Childers remained shrouded in anonymity, known only as Ledyard Jane Doe, discovered in a shallow grave in Ledyard, Connecticut. However, in March 2024, a groundbreaking revelation emerged. Othram, a Texas-based company, unveiled her true identity. This breakthrough came as a result of their collaboration with the Connecticut Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, who were fervently working to address the backlog of unidentified remains. Othram successfully extracted DNA leading to the long-awaited identification of the unknown woman, 5 decades after her discovery and nearly 54 years since her tragic demise. Linda Sue Childers was born on September 4, 1946, and was originally from Louisville, Kentucky. Prior to her untimely demise, she reached out to her daughter, expressing her imminent return from the Northeast. Her daughter recalls waiting on the porch for her mother to return home, not knowing the tragic fate her mother met that stretched across state lines and through decades of mystery. On May 30, 1974, after a 19-day search, spanning 5 acres of swampy woodland in Ledyard, Connecticut, the remains of a man and a woman were unearthed, wrapped in blankets and twine, buried in a shallow grave. The tale began 4 years earlier, in December 1970, when the man in the grave, Gustavous Carmichael, a 28-year-old man from Boston, and his female companion, Linda Sue Childers, were on the run after he robbed a bank with Roger Brown in Trenton, New Jersey. Following the heist, the 2 men rendezvoused at a Connecticut hotel, accompanied by Linda and Roger's girlfriend Sandra, to divide their $60,000 loot. The couples soon went their separate ways and were set to reunite on New Year's Day, but Gustavous and Linda never showed up. Gustavous had drawn the attention of authorities, not only for the bank robbery in New Jersey, but also for escaping from federal officials in October 1970. This escape occurred while he was being transferred from Walpole State Prison in Massachusetts to the U.S. District Court in Hartford, Connecticut, for sentencing on a separate bank robbery conviction. He was also wanted for other serious offenses. With limited options and the law hot on their trail, Gustavous and Linda sought sanctuary at a friend's residence in Ledyard. On December 28, 1970, they arrived in their green 1964 Oldsmobile at an A-framed house located at 139 Shoeville Road, currently rented by Richard DeFreitas and his wife, Joanne. Seeking shelter for a few days, they carried with them a hefty sum of $30,000 in cash. Accompanying them at the residence was another man named Donald Brandt. After a brief stay, Richard provided them with false identification papers he had stolen earlier that year, facilitating their move to a nearby apartment in Noanck, Connecticut, rented under the aliases Dirk and Lorraine Stahl on December 30th. However, Linda harbored unease living under a false identity, confiding in Joanne about her fears and uncertainties regarding potential police questioning. Joanne, in turn, shared this information with her husband, who became very uneasy. Richard and Donald, no strangers to trouble with the law, were themselves evading capture. Richard, a convicted armed robber with a history of run-ins dating back several years, was wanted for additional armed robberies. Rumors swirled that he had even shot a man in New Hampshire in 1969. Donald was also a seasoned criminal with a violent past. Convicted in 1963 for second-degree murder after stabbing one of his best friends, he had served 5 years of a 12-year sentence. On December 31st, Richard and Donald devised a sinister plan to lure the couple back to the house. Richard waited for them in the dining room, while Donald remained concealed. Upon their entrance, Richard unleashed a hail of bullets upon Gustavous, riddling him with several fatal shots. Petrified, Linda made a desperate attempt to flee, darting towards the kitchen, only to meet her demise as Donald emerged from a utility closet and swiftly silenced her with a single fatal gunshot to the head. The pair then called their associate James Gardner to aid them in the murdered couple's disposal. Together, they wrapped the lifeless bodies in blankets, buried them far behind the house, divided the ill-gotten gains from Carmichael's briefcase, and then headed out to a New Year's Eve party in Rhode Island. Shortly after, they embarked on divergent paths, each shadowed by their own misdeeds. Richard's criminal exploits continued unabated, culminating in a subsequent armed robbery that landed him in a Rhode Island prison with a 10-year sentence. Meanwhile, Donald found himself embroiled in another tumultuous legal battle, charged with the double murder of Paul Lavoie and Norman Bailey in Providence, Rhode Island, though he would be acquitted. As the years unfolded, Richard's thirst for freedom led to another daring escape from prison in February 1974, thrusting him back into a life on the run. Amidst a flurry of law enforcement pursuits, Joanne, his common-law wife, made a pivotal decision, breaking her silence to alert authorities to the grim truth concealed behind the property they once inhabited in Ledyard. This revelation sparked a relentless 19-day search, culminating in Richard's apprehension on the very day the bodies were unearthed. In August 1974, Richard DeFreitas, aged 35, and Donald Brandt, aged 42, faced the weight of justice as state police charged them with 2 counts of first-degree murder each for the killings of Carmichael and the then unidentified woman. James Gardner, also 35, found himself charged with obstruction of justice in connection with the heinous crimes. Before their trial commenced, both men once again orchestrated separate daring escapes from prison, getting caught shortly thereafter. The courtroom drama unfolded in May 1976 as the trial commenced. James Gardner emerged as the pivotal witness, captivating the jury with his testimony against Richard and Donald. With vivid detail, he painted a picture of their involvement in the murders, as well as a nefarious criminal syndicate, detailing a string of robberies and their clandestine operation of multiple apartments in Rhode Island, stocked with caches of weapons. James's wife, Hilda, also took the stand, recounting how in early 1971, James had brought home certain pieces of female clothing, which she stowed away in a closet until police requested them in 1974, following the discovery of the bodies. These garments and belongings, she revealed, belonged to the unidentified woman who had met a tragic fate. In July 1976, the jury found both men guilty, and they were sentenced to life imprisonment. While the saga should have ended there, Donald once again made a daring bid for freedom, escaping prison again in 1977, which ended in him being shot and killed by Vermont State Police. With the murderers convicted and both now deceased, the last puzzle to be solved in this story was the identity of the woman left in the shallow grave. With Linda's identity finally revealed after 5 decades of anonymity, thanks to the excellent work of Othram and the progressive steps taken by authorities in Connecticut, the last chapter of her story unfolds. Her family, long haunted by uncertainty, now grapples with the harsh reality of her fate. And as the dust settles on this tale of tragedy and betrayal, one can only hope that Linda Sue Childers finds the peace in death that eluded her in life.